Guys, it's Martin from Martin Village, and welcome to Coming to Your Sofa. We've been doing a few now. I hope you've all been enjoying them. I am delighted to say we have got something very different for you today. We are joined this evening by Stu from GAdventures, which their product is it covers everything you want to do adventure-wise. Hi, Stu. How are you?
Hi, Martin. I'm well, thanks, and thanks for having me on to talk about all things adventure.
Oh, fantastic! So I hope people joining in, tuning in, should I say, will find something there for themselves. I'm going to hand over to Stu now. He's going to tell you everything about GAdventures. And as always, if you want to pop your comments below, any questions that you may have, we will answer them at the end of the presentation. And I will hand over to Stu now, and he'll tell you everything about what GAdventures has to offer.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Martin. And I hope everyone's safe and well. As a little saying that I guess we've been using at GAdventures, stay positive, test negative. So I hope everyone's safe and well wherever they are. I'm Stu from GAdventures, massive fan of travel, as I'm sure you guys are. Love to go out there and experience the world. So when I had the opportunity to work for GAdventures 8 years ago, I jumped at the chance. And as we go on, you'll see why. Just the full range of trips that we do. Perhaps the hardest part of my job is actually that second word of our name, adventures, because everyone thinks, oh, do I want to go on an adventure, or would I rather just sit on the beach? But as I'll tell you as we go on, an adventure you don't have to be Bear Grylls. It can be sailing in the Maldives. It's basically anything that's just not a hotel, that's beyond the resort, where you actually get to experience a country. So who are GAdventures? We're the biggest independent adventure travel company in the world. And what does that mean? Well, we're independent, so we're not owned by shareholders and such like. So we can be a bit more flexible. We can decide we want to go to this country. We can decide we want to run a whole new trip here. And that certainly makes us nice and flexible, and it gives you guys some great options around the world. Like these, more than 600 tours. I think it's about 680 at the minute, in over 100 countries. So if there's a country you've always wanted to see, if there's something on your bucket list you've always wanted to see, there's a very, very good chance that we go there. You'll see that we've got basically all of Asia covered. We've got China, Japan. Japan's been trending lately. Everyone wants to go to Japan. Vietnam, Thailand. We've got Australia, of course, when they let us back in, and New Zealand. We've got all of Europe covered. We've got America, Canada, Mexico, and pretty much all of South America, except for poor little Paraguay there on the left in gray. I've been to Paraguay. There's not a lot going on there, but it still is a beautiful country. But otherwise, we're pretty much going almost everywhere. And the next question would be, well, what do we do? What do we do at GAdventures? And I like to quickly say what we don't do. So we say a little bit less of this, which is, you can't picture this happening in COVID times now, can you? Really busy beaches. We're not about kind of those kind of trips. We're more about the likes of something like our Thai sailing that we do, where there's only 12 people on the yacht, and you go out to remote islands where there's no other boats there unless they've actually sailed out there as well. We're all about small group experiences, where you have a maximum of 16 people on most trips, and that means there's usually 8 couples. Of course, you could go with a group of 4 friends. You could go with 6 friends, and then you would make up a lot of that group. But then the average group size is about 12, so you're actually talking more like 6 couples. And what that means is when you're sitting around at a restaurant, you can sit around the same table or 2 tables rather than, say, a group of 40 or 50 people. So you really get to bond with those people, really get to know them. And as I said, it may be that you want to go away with your extended family after you've not seen them for so long and have your own small adventure. We do small river adventures as well. So this is in France, in Burgundy. And that one takes 24 passengers, and it just sails through the locks, through the canals, of France. We've also got the Mekong as well on a different vessel. We've got the Amazon in Peru. So, you know, there's great river options out there that might be 100 people, and they may have cabaret shows and all these great things, that maybe even swimming pools. We haven't quite got that, but we're at the smaller side. So yeah, a little bit smaller, a little bit more intimate. If you've heard of the Galapagos, or you've seen any of the Perfect Planet series recently with BBC, with David Attenborough, then we go out to the Galapagos. So we've got 5 vessels out there. Again, small numbers, so it's just you and a couple other people on the boat. There's always an expert on board as well, so it's a great opportunity to see all the wildlife that are out there. And of course, all your food's included when you're on board, and they're all very competitively priced as well. My favorite trip that I'm always talking about is we go sailing in the Maldives. And this is one of our vessels. It's a traditional dhoni, and it's about £1,000 for a week without flights. So add-on flights, you're looking at about £1,500 with all your food, sailing around the Maldives. And we actually had a couple that managed to get out on the air corridors over Christmas and New Year's, and they did this trip back to back, which I think would be the perfect way to bring in Christmas, New Year's, you know, to perhaps get away from the cold weather and such, and get out and explore and sail around the Maldives. So we've got the sailing there in the Maldives, we've got sailing in Sri Lanka, we've got sailing in Bali, and then closer to home, we've got Greece, we've got Croatia, brand new Canary Islands as well. So certainly plenty of options. We've got our own cruise ship as well, although she's much smaller, as you'll see in the next picture. She's only 134 passengers, and we take her to Antarctica, we take her to the Arctic. So when we were talking earlier about adventures, and people think, oh, okay, adventures is rock climbing or something like that. That's not for me. You know, if you want to go and see penguins, if you want to go and see polar bears in the wild, then that's the kind of adventures that we're talking about. And here's a picture of our ship next to Crown Princess. Just for scale, you can see that, I mean, we're 134 passengers, and I think that ship is about 2,000 passengers. So these were photographed next to each other in Ushuaia in South America, where we then departed and went off to Antarctica. But just shows you the different experience. So like I kind of hinted on before, what is adventure travel? Well, I love this picture of this guy scared in the jungle. Basically, you don't have to be this guy, and it's not all about rock climbing. We have no trips with included rock climbing, no trips where you have to skydive or bungee jump or anything like that. It's not about that at all. It's about new and unique experiences. And what you find is when you come back from a holiday, any holiday, it's often those little things that you remember. You remember the food that you had, you know, that fantastic Saganaki cheese. That's my favorite when you're out in Greece. You know, remember that show that you went and saw when you were in New York. It's not always necessarily about the actual hotel that you remember, unless it's mind-blowing. It's about those little experiences like snorkeling in the Maldives and things like that. So that's, if we were renaming the company, it would be something like GExperience, which might be a little less daunting for people. So the great thing about these small groups, great thing about adventure travel is it's about avoiding the tourist traps. So you're not staying in those big cities, you're getting out. This is by Lake Tahoe. I believe it was where this picture was taken. So some of our trips offer camping, which means you really get away. You can see fantastic stars and see wildlife as well. Big thing for us is you're always traveling with a local. So if you're traveling in America, it's obviously going to be an American that shows you around, not an Australian or someone else that might not know the area. And that, I think that's particularly important important in these new times, because if you go to a country where English isn't the first language, if you're going to Peru or somewhere where they speak a lot of English, but they also speak Spanish and Quechua, then you'll have a local with you that will have a phone number that you know works on the system there, so they can make phone calls if you have any questions or, God forbid, emergencies. They're going to be able to converse in the local language as well as speaking with you. So that's absolutely crucial, of course, is that you can ask any questions you want, and they can ask, you know, potentially helping you haggle at a market for a souvenir or something like that. The other great things about our trips is we are global. So that means in pre-pandemic times that on our trips, I think we had about 115 nationalities travel with us. in a given year. So that means you have people from all over the world filtering into these trips, and that trip that you've decided to go and do in Vietnam might have some Australians, it might have some Canadians, it might have some Germans, and that becomes a real melting pot for the trip itself, because you went all that way to Vietnam to experience the culture and the food, but perhaps what you weren't expecting was you get to meet these different people from around the world, form new friendships, and even just learn their take on the world, which is always quite exciting as well. The other really key thing is that there is something for everyone. So we've got trips that are great for families, for kids, because of course, if you can travel with kids, it really broadens their mind. And of course, it's great to come back as well. So we really do say we have a tour for every traveler. My colleague says I say tour wrong because it's in my Australian accent, but we do have a trip for every traveler. So we've got our classic trips, which we'd kind of coin our 3-star, great for everyone. We've got our 18 to 30, which, as the name suggests, is for only those 18 to 39. And they're, trips that are 9 days in Bali for £450. Incredibly great value, but in accommodation that's probably more like a 2-star. We've got our active trips, which are about climbing Kilimanjaro, places like that. Our marine trips, which are on sale this month, which is the sailing that I spoke about, or the riverboats. Wellness for people that want to take a bit of a retreat for a week or so, do a bit of yoga, a bit of meditation. We've got rail, we've got local living, which, as the name suggests, is where you live like a local. So it might be going to a Tuscan farmhouse in Italy where you'll stay and learn to make pasta and drink wine. Sounds terrible, doesn't it? And then we've got our family trips and our National Geographic trips as well, which I'll touch on. And then I did mention just briefly before that we do private groups. So we can work with Martin, we can put together a trip for you if you all want to get away and go sailing together. Our Greek sailing yacht, our Croatia sailing yacht only takes 8 people. So it may be that it's your trip. You don't need to, if you're not ready to travel with other people from around the world, or if you've got enough people for your own group, then that could be an option. So a couple of the core destinations that we go to where that are really popular and we've run a lot of trips is the likes of Peru, where we have about, I think, 30 trips or so. One of the biggest tour operators there. So of course, Peru, famed for for Machu Picchu that you can see in the picture there. And it's where the Inca Empire was at its largest. And equally, you can also walk to Machu Picchu on the Inca Trail, which you may have heard of. So we recently actually restarted the Inca Trail about 3 or 4 days ago. We were asked by the Peruvian government to kind of kickstart it again with a trial. So very honored that they chose us as the largest operator just to get things going again. And we've actually seen quite a trend through the pandemic of people booking that they want to go and do something active. They don't want to climb Everest, but they might want to go and do a lot more walks, which is kind of coming through in what we're seeing that people want to book. Like I said, we do Ecuador on the Galapagos as well. Beautiful place to get to. Antarctica for the penguins, for the whales, all of that. That's proven really popular as well. And I think what we're seeing is that people want to get out to these kind of back to nature. They want to get out and explore. And in some cases, they want to go to remote locations as well. Morocco, just on our doorstep, so to speak, but just such a completely different culture. And of course, it's usually quite warm, being just there in North Africa. Egypt as well. We do trips to Egypt and Jordan, and you can combine them as well. Go along the Nile, of course. South Africa, we've seen a big lift in people kind of saying, you know what, I finally want to go and see, I finally want to go on a game drive. I finally want to go on a wildlife drive and see animals. So that's been coming through as well. The whole South African variant of the virus is not really helping, to be honest. So that's probably a bit more for 2022. But yeah, beautiful part of the world. I mentioned Vietnam, of course, timeless charm. So much to see there in such a beautiful country. Costa Rica, Central America. I think Costa Rica opened its borders quite early to say, come on in if you've got a negative test. So people have been flocking to Costa Rica. I know that we've got our challenges with our air corridors, but to give you an example, like the Canadians and the Americans have been going down to Costa Rica, and we've been running trips down there, which has been really exciting to be running trips. Iceland, of course, another one on our doorstep. Great opportunities there. And we've got a brand new trip, which is actually hiking around the east as well, where you do day hikes, the likes of, which you wouldn't normally go to. Or over on the west side, you can put together a trip for a couple of days where you go and see the main sites on what's called the Golden Circle, which is the waterfalls and the geysers and such. And then the last one, which is very similar to South Africa, is the Serengeti, the Masai Mara, the wildebeest in East Africa. So we've seen a lot of people interested in that. And I guess quickly, what's different about GAdventures compared to any other operator? Well, one of the main things is we start with responsible travel. So the whole world has an opportunity now that when we build back, when we start traveling again, we can travel better, which means that we can ensure we continue to love our planet. Well, of course, we don't litter, all of those things. Do what we can around recycling. But a big thing for us is making sure money makes its way back into the local economy. So what I mean by that is if you went to the Lake District, if you went to the Cotswolds, you may well stay in a B&B. And then you meet the owner and you get to know that the money that you're giving them for that, to stay for the night, is going to fund, their daughter's ballet lessons or their son's football lessons. Well, we try and take that concept, and when you're actually traveling around the world in completely different countries, make sure we're staying in a way where the money stays local. So we've put a number on this because we're that confident. And it's that important to us, and it's called the Ripple Score. So if you're on our website or if you happen to pick up a brochure, then what it means is when you're actually having a look, you'll see how much money stays in the local economy. So what does that mean? Well, essentially, if you get off the plane and you had £1,000, let's just say 100. You had £100 because the score's out of 100. You had £100, how much money would actually find its way into the hands of locals? And when I say locals, I mean if you went to McDonald's or KFC and bought your meal, then some of that money is going back to the big head office in America or wherever the head office is. So we're trying to make sure that we visit local restaurants. We're staying in hotels which are not big global chains you've heard of. Instead, they're nice boutique hotels, not necessarily B&Bs because we need to have enough room for 16 people. But we really want that money to stay locally, which means it's, helps the local economy. And that's really important to us. There's plenty more about that Martin can tell you or that you'll find on our website as well. The next thing about us, which can sound a little funny, is we don't have tour guides. And the reason is that we've renamed them and we call them CEOs. So if you're reading that there'll be a CEO on your tour, it doesn't mean the guy that owns the company. It doesn't mean the guy that runs the company. It's our term for a local guide, which we say is a chief experience officer. What does that mean? Well, they're basically in charge of your experience, aren't they? And when people come back from a trip, the number one thing that they remember is their CEO. Oh, my CEO took me here. My CEO knew about this. They knew about that. And equally, which doesn't happen very often, if you don't have a great time, sometimes it's linked to the guide, to the CEO. So they're so important that we've elevated their title. They go through special training. They have to know everything about the destination. And of course, we want them to be locals or have lived there long enough that they're basically a local. So yeah, you'll encounter a CEO on any trip. Other big thing for us is all our trips are guaranteed. Now, if there's suddenly a no-fly zone that's called on a country, then of course that's different. But going to pre-pandemic times, what 100% guaranteed means is there's no minimum numbers. So what would happen in the past is you'd have some operators that would say, right, the tour takes 30 people, but I need 10 people or I can't really run it. And so if there wasn't enough people, you'd get a phone call to say, I'm sorry, it's not guaranteed. So what we do is we guarantee every single trip. So if it's just you and your 3 friends, then it's going to run. And that just hopefully gives you peace of mind that you're going to be able to go on that trip. I did touch earlier on National Geographic. So, you could be forgiven for having never heard of GAdventures if you've not come across us before, but I would hope everyone's heard of National Geographic. And National Geographic approached us a few years and said they'd love to work with us. Let's put together some tours. And of course, being National Geographic, they've got that extra kind of informative, educational aspect to them, but they've also upgraded accommodation. So if someone said, what's the most comfortable trip I can do, I would say, look at our National Geographic trips, because they're around 4-star, they're upgraded accommodation. And because National Geographic is such a big name, they work with so many different businesses around the world and scientific pursuits, they've helped open the door for us to different locations. So you might be on safari and you'll get to go and meet an expert that's actually tracking the lions and hear about, oh, they found the cubs yesterday and the cubs were this big, things like that. If you're in Sydney, there's access to a university aquarium as well. So there's all these little things that National Geographic has access to, and they're fantastic trips. We've also got a National Geographic family trips, which launched about 2 years ago. And these have 2 local guides, so 2 CEOs. There's a little quick snapshot there of where the trips are around the world, but they're all designed that other families would come on the trip. So you don't go on the trip and it's just you and your children. There's other kids on the trip as well. And that really adds to that entire community feel, that the kids can play together, form new bonds as well, potentially with travelers from around the world, which, to use the word pen pal sounds a little funny, but for them to have friends from a different part of the world, from America, Canada, or even from the UK, if they're from the UK, it just is a really great flavor of travel as well. And then I wanted to touch really quickly on our newest Europe trips. So recognizing that the trends we've seen, people want to stay a bit closer to home. They want to stay in Europe. Some people want to stay in Europe this year, rather than, if they can't get out to Australia, if they can't get into some of those countries this year, or maybe in the back end. So we put together a whole new range of trips that are all based around active. So they're short walks. There's not really long hikes where you carry your own gear, nothing like that. Short walks. So we've got Iceland, Corfu, northern Greece, where you climb Mount Olympus and you actually go to the monastery that's from one of the James Bond films, if anyone remembers that. I forget the name. I think it was Live and Let Die. Maybe I'd have to check that. But yeah, we go there. We go to Ibiza. You would never think of Ibiza for walking, but we go to Ibiza. So it's not all just about the sunshine and the clubs. We've got Cyprus. We've got Greenland. We've got Canary Islands, hiking and sailing. Northern Sicily, southern Sicily, Slovenia, southern Spain, just out the back of Malaga, where you stay in a cave hotel. And then we've got the islands of the Azores and Madeira. And then northern Italy, we've got a trip where you just walk through vineyards and drink wine, which I think is brilliant in Piedmont. But a couple of those quick ones I spoke about. So hiking in the Canary Islands, where you do day hikes each day around Mount Tidy and through the forests as well. Our brand new sailing the Canary Islands as well. That's the yacht there in the top left, which looks like an absolutely stunning way to get around. And you can join those 2 trips together, of course. And then we've got a trip hiking in Crete, where you go to the Smaria Gorge, which is the famous gorge that everyone wants to go to. You can see some of the walking tracks that are next to the water there in the picture in the top left. And then we've got a trip in northern Sicily, where you see the volcanoes and, of course, get to take in all the beautiful food as well. And then just rounding out now, I just wanted to say that we're running tours now. So, of course, the UK is on lockdown. Many parts of the world are on lockdown. But because there's these little pockets around the world where the Canadians can travel, or the Americans can travel, or we can travel for a little while, we're running trips. So that means we actually ran our sailing trips in September, October. We did some trips around Mont Blanc, which is that middle picture where people went walking around the Alps. And the picture on the right there is in Costa Rica. And then a couple of days ago, like I said, we're doing a test on the Inca Trail. We had some people reach the top of Kilimanjaro last week as well. So, and pictures coming through from the Serengeti, where we're running safaris. So we're not running as many trips as we used to right now, but the important thing is that we're back out there, we're traveling again, and that means when you're ready to travel, that we're not just starting from nothing. We've been running trips, so we kind of know how to keep things safe. If you're traveling during the pandemic, and there's going to be, of course, extra hand washing and mask wearing, and we're going to be make sure we're cleaning the vehicles and such. Then we're going to be old hat. We're going to be experts at that, which is important. So the main thing is to say that when you're ready to travel, so are we. So's Martin to book it for you. So we've got a full book with confidence policy that permits changes much closer to travel. The travel with confidence when you're actually traveling is around, how we're going to keep everyone safe, how you might not be going to a buffet. Instead, it might be a sit-down meal where someone brings it to you, just, to make sure that everyone stays safe. We have a collection of trips I didn't even touch on, which are only 12 people instead of 16. That's our Travel with Confidence Plus. And the Book Your Bubble is if you want to book together your own family. If you want to have kind of 8 people, that's an absolute option as well. And I guess the main thing to remember is smaller is better. So we've got these kind of small trips covered for you. So yeah, just to say thank you to Martin for this part of the presentation. I'll shut down my presentation now and we can take any questions that people might have.
Wow, Stu. Adventures for me were, like you said, it's like bungee jumping, whitewater rafting and things like that. And so as I'm looking into GAdventures, like we have done our research over the last few months, I've been working with you, it's not all about that, is it?
No, not at all. No, that's the misconception is people think, oh, well, it's an adventure, so I couldn't do it or my grandma couldn't do it. I love telling people we had a 92-year-old travel with us, and you'd think they'd be best suited on, I don't know, Saga or something, wouldn't you? Or staying at home. But yeah, something for everyone. It's just that word adventure. People get hung up on it. They think you got to be Bear Grylls, but it basically just means experience. It means you're going to go away and experience something, which I think we would all kill to experience anything at the minute rather than just our own houses.
Oh, yeah, just getting outside our local areas would be a start.
I know, yeah.
We're all locked up at the moment. But no, I mean, just looking on through some of the amazing adventures. You mentioned the Maldives. You could do a sail around the Maldives, which would be just like, wow. That must be amazing. Galapagos and things like that. But you can combine them with doing, stays in places, couldn't you? All part of a bigger bucket list adventure. I know people go away for 3-4 weeks at a time and travel parts of the world. So you could do it as part of that as well. I mean, have you ever done anything like that yourself? Have you gone on a long trip or?
Yeah. I can think of one example. Before we got married, my wife and I went and did the Greek sailing that we do. So we do this Greek sailing where we start in Santorini, sail for 10 days, Naxos, Mykonos, and come back to all the way back to Santorini. And beforehand, we spent a couple of days in, I think, Ia. I might be saying it wrong, but, all the way where you can watch the sunset. So we spent a couple of days there where we were staying in a hotel, one of those beautiful ones. So we had that relaxing part of the holiday. And then we went off and did the sailing, which is still relaxing, but yeah, a bit more active than chilling in the pool.
So with the sailing, are you actually involved with the sailing and helping sail the ship, or are you there to just sit there and relax and wait on hand and foot like most people realise about normal cruises, or are you in the thick of it and putting the sails up and getting food and things like that?
Well, you don't have to go and catch the food or anything with fishing unless you really want to. But so there's on our European sailing, they only take 8 people. So it's hard not to be involved. But when we did it, everyone wanted to get involved. People wanted to try the ropes, and you start to learn what's the sheet and what's the mainsail, and you get to actually steer the ship as well. But I'll never forget there was this one gentleman who just didn't want to do that, which is fine. So he just chilled and and took in the sea, took in the sun, which is completely fine. So yeah, there's no expectation you know how to sail on the sailing trips. We'll teach you. But you can also just sit there and you don't have to participate if you don't want to.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I'd love to get involved, and I'd be there like, what do I need to do next? And actually, the ship would just be like, a big tick on your list. That I steered a sailing ship. That'd just be like, that's a memory created for your life, the rest of your life, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great picture. You stood there with the wheel, and it's like I turned it left, I turned it right. Yeah, I think I need to get on that. You mentioned about Greece, but you also do Croatia as well. I noticed the one that goes from Split to Dubrovnik. That looks an amazing trip as well. Some of the real smaller ports that these big ships would never ever get into. You'd have to do the sort of side trips. So I think that'd be amazing, just sailing in, up on deck and things. So, but it's not.
Yeah.
Go on, sorry, Stu.
Oh no, I was just going to say, like, I've done the Greek sailing twice. I've not done Croatia sailing, but we quite often do a beach barbecue. So we'll get everything we need, and we'll go out to just a remote beach in the middle of nowhere. So in an island that's not inhabited, or that away from everything else, and we'll have a beach barbecue under the stars. A couple of beers as well, or wines, and it's that kind of unscripted that you won't find on the website, you won't find in the itinerary, but that's the real experience that you take away.
Oh, well, sailing, beer, barbecue, it all goes together, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
That's the best trip ever. I mean, being an Aussie, you'll know about beers and barbecues, I'm
That's
sure.
right. Yeah. Just mythos instead of something else.
But no, I mean, you've been with the company. How many years have you been with GAdventures now?
8 years with G, and in travel for about 12 years or so.
Wow. So, tell me what's been your favourite GAdventure trip that you've done? Or is it the sailing one with your wife? Is she listening in the background?
No, she's not listening in, actually. She's still coming back from work. No, it's usually all the other free trips that I go on that she doesn't come on. No, I've been very blessed at GAdventures. So, yeah, I got to go to the Arctic. That was definitely up there as a bucket list, spotting polar bears. I think the nice thing about that is that sense of adventure is it's not like going to a zoo where you say, right, we're going to walk around the corner and we're going to see penguins, or we're going to see a lion. You're up there and the polar bears are there, but everyone's looking for them all the time because nothing's guaranteed. You're trying to find a white animal in a sea of white. They're slightly yellowish brown, but that's a real sense of adventure. When you actually spot one, everyone goes a little bit crazy because it's that real kind of adventure sense of accomplishment.
Again, I've been doing these shows for a couple of weeks now. My bucket list is getting longer and longer.
I think you should just take 2022 off and travel.
That's it. I mean, the hobby, I'm sure, will be made up. So now, I mean, thinking about what you've done, but what is your ultimate bucket list now that you've got? Where would you like to go? We could say you could go now, wherever you want. It's always been on your hit list. Where would that be?
I definitely got quite an appetite for the remote places. Yeah, we do some trips in Central Asia, so we do like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan and things like that, and they're certainly off the beaten track. Probably one of the best places I've been was Bhutan, though, which is again off the beaten track. And that's I guess the great thing about us is if you think, oh, where's that place? I've always wanted to go there. Punch it in. Our website, get in touch with yourself, and we pretty much go everywhere. So it's really nice, especially if a friend mentions, oh, I went to this place, or it pops up in a pub quiz. Who knows? So lots of beautiful places out there.
So you heard that first, guys. If something pops up in a pop quiz and you want to go there, get in touch and we'll speak to Stu and he'll sort it for
there
us.
You go. We probably do it.
I like the idea as well that you can just go with friends. So, if you like the sailing or small groups, it could just be your group. So it's like everybody's talking about bubbles. It means you can all travel together, and it becomes like a private escorted tour if there's enough of you, doesn't it? So
yeah, that's the beauty of the small groups is if you've got about 8 people, it could just be your group. We can do it for less than 8, but eight's kind of the measure of it being the same as the website price or less. So if you think, right, haven't seen my friends from, it could be another country, or it could be your friends from the other side of this country. If you haven't seen them for a while, you all want to get away together and do the Greek sailing. That's 8 people plus a skipper. So not a lot of people. Or maybe you want to go a bit further. You want to go to Morocco, Egypt, Australia. When we can get there, you can do your own group, and that way it's just you guys catching up. You've still got that local guide, so no one has to say, right, my turn to navigate. You've still got your local guide, but a good chance to connect all together again. And I think we all deserve a bit of that as soon as we can, seeing our loved ones.
I think a lot of people will be doing that, and it is, we've all missed all our friends and family. So you can do a multi-generational trip, or you can get your friends together. You think, do you know what, guys? We've had a whole year without seeing each other. Let's all pack our cases. We're off to Morocco, wherever it is. it'd be an amazing trip. So, and stag and hen parties as well, another great thing.
Well, maybe, yeah.
So there, I'm getting so many ideas now. You mentioned about family trips and things. I mean, is the one that you'd sort of recommend as somebody who's never done an adventure or an experience, as you say, the word adventure sort of sounds a bit like really like jumping off cliffs, as you said. But for a family, what is there something on your side you said, you know what, to give you a taste, this would be an ideal trip to do?
Yeah, I think you can stay a bit closer to home. So we've got some trips in Italy called local living. And I mean, you've seen kind of the trend for villas. You basically go away, all stay together. Imagine that, but imagine you're staying in an Italian farmhouse with a family, and they're going to teach you to make pasta. They're going to teach you to make limoncello from their own lemons. There's a pool there, and the view overlooks a vineyard. So essentially you're going in there. You could just be you and the family. You could essentially book it out, but otherwise you might have some travelers from around the world that will be there with you. And yeah, local living does what it says on the tin. You live like a local, so you're not packing and unpacking and going to catching flights, buses, nothing like that. Staying in one place and doing day trips. So like the one in Italy, you do a day trip to Pompeii because everyone wants to see that. Yeah, that's just a quick example, but yeah, also things like making pasta yourself. Never done that. That'd be quite an experience.
You've got me at making pasta and limoncello.
I know, yeah.
Oh, but that's amazing. So I mean, it's great. I mean, the products that you've got are absolutely fantastic, and and as I said to you, you've dispelled all my myths and my misconceptions of what adventure was, in what you've presented today. And I hope you've done that for everybody else joining in today to go, do you know what? I quite fancy that, whether it's sailing or making pasta in Italy, whatever that may be. But as I say, Stu, I just want to say thank you for joining us and giving us that insight into GAdventures or GAperiences, as you think you should be called. But absolutely fantastic, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. Stu, thank you for taking time out. I know you've got your family and things, and joining us this evening. So thank you for that. Guys, if you do have any questions about GAdventures or want to look at doing something, a staying cruise, I mean, I really want to get on the yacht. So I'm thinking now Greece or Dubrovnik is mine, I think I'll have to do that one. Then just give us a call. You know the number, it's 0161 735 0112. You can get us on Facebook. And also email us. We have some amazing adventures to bring to you. I just can't wait to get you all on some of these. Guys, it's been a pleasure as always. We've got more shows coming up over the next few weeks. Lots of people coming to join you in your living room and tell you all about what they've got to offer. If you are watching this back, guys, then some of these offers may not be available, but do call us and we'll get up-to-date prices for you. Thanks for joining us, guys, and we will be back with you in our next episode of Coming to Your Sofa. Take care. Bye for now. Thanks, Stu.
Bye. Thanks, Martin.